Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambo channel. I've been saying almost for as long as I've been in the world of crypto, which is coming up on 6 years here in November for me, I've been saying for almost that whole time that at some point I believe that there will be a spot XRP ETF. And I say that, of course, fully understanding that we haven't even gotten a spot Bitcoin ETF, which is I think accepted by almost 100% of humans on the planet. It's just accepted that that will be the first cryptocurrency that does get approved by the SEC for an ETF. And that's fine. I hold Bitcoin. I'm pro Bitcoin. I have been since November 2017. I'm just more excited about XRP. But it's still coming. And so a couple of things here right out the gate. A spot Bitcoin ETF is incredibly positive for XRP, and I want to talk about that. But then, when you start talking about a spot XRP ETF, whoa, doggy. Like the amount of money flowing in, because you're talking about people who only engage in legacy finance suddenly, without having to take any additional efforts on their own, suddenly having access to the crypto asset class. And maybe they don't have any sort of exposure to crypto, not because they're even against it, but it's kind of on the peripheral for them. Maybe they're aware of it, but they're like, okay, I could dip my toe in the water a little bit. And even just like a fraction of a percent from some firms out there, if you're talking about at an institution level, people on a retail level purchasing, whether it's on NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange, my God, the multiplier effect. I mean, if you look at what's available on exchanges, whether you're talking about Bitcoin or XRP, frankly, there's not that much. There's not that much available for sale, especially not if you're talking about even just like a 5-fold increase in daily volume, which, by the way, analysts from Fundstrat think would be the case for Bitcoin specifically. And it just leaves me wondering, wouldn't you see something similar for XRP if true? But before going further, I do want to be clear. I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. So I remember saying on this channel before the SEC v. Ripple lawsuit that I believed at some point in the future it'll be the case that XRP will probably see a spot ETF. After the lawsuit, I was still saying during the lawsuit, when it wasn't a popular time to say this, I still believe at some unknown point in the future there will be a spot XRP ETF. And now that we're after the lawsuit, I'm that much more confident. I'm that much more confident. It seems like an inevitability to me. Not a guarantee, but just about. I don't see XRP going away anytime soon, if ever, right? Do you? So look at this headline from the Crypto Basic. Influencer highlights likelihood of XRP ETF amid 7 ETH ETF applications. And again, just to be super duper clear, so that you understand why what I'm about to cover for you, the rest of it, what I'm going to share with you, is important. It's because if you're talking about whether it's a Bitcoin ETF or ETH ETF or XRP ETF, whatever firm it is that has approval from the SEC to operate such an ETF, it is going to be backed by actual Bitcoin or actual ETH or actual XRP. So you can understand what that would do for supply and demand dynamics. And then think about the additional institutional money that would flow in as a result. Even if you're just looking at, on the retail side out there, you're like, literally understand, you're talking about people on NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange, wherever it gets listed, it would be along those lines, right? That people there, if you're just buying stuff from there, you can buy it now. And it's just a new option. Like, oh, that's funny. I've heard about this crypto thing. Maybe I will get a little bit of exposure. That's why all of this matters. Piece reads as follows. Former CFTC lawyer Mike Selig has taken to Twitter to express his views on the recent surge in applications for ETH exchange-traded funds with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. Selig argued that if a Bitcoin ETF were on the horizon, it was already likely that an ETH ETF would not be far behind. The lawyer reasoned with factors such as Hinman's speech, the SEC FinHub framework, and recent court developments. And so here's the actual tweet from him. He wrote, if a spot Bitcoin ETF is on the horizon, a spot ETH ETF can't be far behind. With the Hinman speech, the SEC FinHub framework, and judicial decisions in Ripple and Terraform, the case grows stronger each day that ETH is not a security, even if it was initially sold as one. And so It does seem as though Bitcoin is just going to continue to be treated as though it has legal clarity, even though it does not. Bitcoin absolutely does not have legal clarity. There's been no sort of clarity provided from a court or from any sort of government agency or from Congress. It doesn't exist. Bitcoin is in no man's land, legally speaking, but I don't think there's anybody under the sun, except for maybe Elizabeth Warren, who wants to have it treated as though it's some sort of actual security. It clearly is not security, but anyway, I'm just saying. So I think Bitcoin's going to be fine there. There'll still be the ETF, but beyond that, XRP is the only large cap cryptocurrency on the entire planet that does have legal clarity in the United States. Even Bitcoin doesn't have that. So if anything, you would think that XRP would have greater odds of getting approved for a spot ETF, right? And so Conrad Twitter, an account here, responded to Mike Selig and wrote, "When XRP ETF?" which is a brilliant question so far as I'm concerned. And Mike Selig actually responded, and he wrote, Of course we can expect XRP ETF filings as well in the wake of the Ripple decision." Spot on. And so I've been calling this for, I guess, over half a decade at this point. I can't remember the very first time I technically said it, but it was very early on. I was like, well, yeah, it's just a natural evolution. There's going to be all sorts of different cryptocurrencies that have spot ETFs. It's just an inevitability. And so I looked at XRP and just how it continues to be increasingly adopted, and it offers real utility, and businesses are using it. And since then, since I jumped into crypto, there's way more developer activity surrounding XRP and the XRP ledger. It's got legal clarity. Why wouldn't this happen? So then what's fun to talk about is the implications in terms of price as a result of just a crazy influx of money. Like, what would that actually mean? And while nobody knows for sure what it would mean, whether you're talking about Bitcoin or XRP, I don't think you're going to have anyone argue that it wouldn't have a substantial impact. It's going to be big. And this is why I find this to be so incredibly exciting. So there was this, and I actually, I only shared this one other time, and it is worth repeating. This article is from the 27th. It's from the Daily Hodl, and they're covering some perspective from Tom Lee of Fundstrat. And this reads as follows. And what they're getting at here, you'll see, is it indicates the amount. So what they do is they anticipate what it would mean, how much money annually is going to flow into Bitcoin if there's a spot Bitcoin ETF, if it actually gets approved, which I think is going to happen. I mean, BlackRock applied. They have applied for 576 ETFs with the SEC. They lost one. The other 575 got approved. They only do it if they already know what the outcome is going to be. And my understanding is that when they failed, it was on some sort of technical error or something. I can't remember the specifics. I read something about it briefly, and I just kind of got the gist of it, that it's just some sort of error. I don't even know if they went back and ended up, maybe that got approved too. But either way, setting it aside, the point is they tend to not make these moves if they don't already know the outcome. And they're so well connected. It's the largest asset manager on the entire planet with roughly $10 trillion in assets under management. Well, they just applied. And I'd be very surprised if they don't get approved. And so even if you're just talking about it's starting with this, and then after that we get a spot XRP ETF, okay, cool, but we're still going to benefit from that prior to that because it's going to put more eyes on crypto. And what do you think that's going to do for everybody else participating in crypto? Price go up, right? Wouldn't that be the fair guess anyway? I'm not making a price prediction, but wouldn't that be a fair guess? What does that mean for XRP and every other coin then? I think it's just a bigger asset class in terms of flow. Well, pick your metric. What wouldn't be better off because of this? So check this out, and this is absolutely astonishing to me. These numbers, check it out. Fundstrat Global Advisors managing partner Tom Lee is predicting that Bitcoin could hit six figures before the halving scheduled for 2024. Lee says in a research note that the approval of a spot Bitcoin exchange-traded fund, ETF, could trigger Bitcoin to rally to between $140,000 and $180,000 before next year in April. Such a move would represent an increase of between 380% and 516% from the current levels. The Fundstrat managing partner says his prediction is based on the thesis by Fundstrat's head of crypto strategy, Sean Farrell, that the approval of a spot Bitcoin ETF would increase the daily demand for Bitcoin fivefold. Now, folks, pay attention to this part because this is where the numbers are coming down here. And this is just endlessly fascinating to me. Here's the quote. Current Bitcoin market is in balance with $25 million in daily block rewards and $25 million in daily demand. Incremental ETF demand. Sean Farrell believes 25 billion with a B of demand is possible in the first year. This is $100 million in daily demand. So pause here again. He just cited in the preceding sentence, you're talking about $25 million in daily demand. Now you're talking about a daily increase of $100 million in daily demand. Here's the rest of his quote. This would bring daily demand to $125 million, while daily supply is only $25 million. The implied equilibrium price would need to rise so daily supply matches daily demand. Equilibrium analysis suggests that a clearing price of $140,000 to $180,000 before the April 2024 halvening. Generally, this idea of higher equilibrium price is consistent. Sean Farrell estimates of flow multiplier for Bitcoin of 4x to 5x, end quote. So again, this would be contingent upon a couple things, at a minimum. First obvious one would be BlackRock actually getting approved for this ETF, and we'll see what the timing might be. And then their analysis being correct. But I would just say this. Even if the numbers are off, they could be off the other direction too. What if the implications of this are way, way bigger? And on top of that, keep in mind, we're just talking about BlackRock here. There are a ton, I've been reporting on this too, in case you hadn't heard though, there are a number of other major firms with an additional X number of trillions of dollars combined in assets under management that have recently filed for spot Bitcoin ETFs, and they copied the approach that BlackRock took. So if BlackRock gets approved first, fine, floodgates open. What about the rest of them? Don't you think that they're going to get approval probably too if they're doing the same damn thing? And then what does that mean in terms of the impact? I'd love to see numbers with that as well. Presumably a lot bigger. Presumably, right? And so fine. I think it's very clear you're going to see an ETF with Bitcoin well before XRP, but why wouldn't it come? XRP is just a decentralized cryptocurrency out there. You don't think that there are going to be financial firms out there that are going to want to push forward an ETF? Because it's for me, unless XRP is going to cease to exist, it's hard to imagine a world where that doesn't eventually happen. I don't know. And so that's also why when you see XRP within the last 24 hours at 62 cents, I'm sitting here like, so? I don't care, man. I am patient AF. I am so patient. I am thrilled to be here. I see all of this stuff happening. I know you're listening, you're paying attention. You see this stuff too. I don't know that the typical retail speculator gets this. They just see price volatility on a day-to-day basis, and if it's up, they feel happy emotions. If it's down, they feel negative emotions, and then they make important financial decisions based on their feels. Well, I don't do that. To me, the writing's been on the wall since, for me personally, since about when I jumped into crypto, when I had my epiphany as to why I knew that crypto would never cease to exist. And for me, my aha moment, my epiphany was when I realized that you can have very valuable business models that are not possible unless you have a decentralized cryptocurrency that has an open market prices and is technologically sufficient for whatever use cases are at hand. So once I recognized that, my simple little brain exploded. I was like, yeah, this is never going away. I recognized that very quickly. So here we are, over half a decade later, it's still true, and people are still figuring this out, and most of the money is on the sidelines. Most institutional money still isn't here, which means that you're early. Congratulations. Good stuff here, folks. So yes, I do believe that there's going to be a spot XRP ETF. I just don't pretend to know when. It would be weird if it never happened. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. That would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.